Hi, I'm Chloe Canning. Welcome back for Season 2 on Lead with Courage. Illuminate Leadership acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, which we would call this podcast the Yagara and Terrible People. We pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Welcome to Lead with Courage, the podcast that celebrates the bold and inspiring stories of leaders making a difference. We're your hosts, Andy and Cherie Canning, and together we'll dive into the minds of the trailblazers, the risk takers, and those who embrace life with a growth mindset.
If you're a regular listener on the Lead with Courage podcast, it would not surprise you to know that we are huge advocates of gratitude and mental wellness here. And that's why introducing our next guest was such a thrill. Former professional surfer turned mental health advocate Cooper Chapman is coming on for a chat to talk about his organisation, The Good Human Factory, as well as his podcast and what he's learned about the importance of mental health. Not just mental health awareness, but talking about mental health action. He shares some great stories, practical tips, and lots of inspiration in this space. A wonderful way to finish off our podcast for 2025. Welcome, Cooper. Cooper Chapman, welcome to the Lead with Courage podcast. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
How you going? Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited. I know you have a very full life, doing a lot of great work all over the world. So thank you for choosing to be here and making the time.
That's my absolute pleasure. I'm sure we're going to have a great chat and hopefully everyone leaves with, one or two things that spark a bit of curiosity and, give them a couple tools to thrive through life.
That is the plan. That's the plan. Before we jump into the work you're doing and sharing some tools, we always have a first question that we ask on this podcast, which is, what does lead with courage mean to you?
What does lead with courage mean to me? I think leading with courage means living by your values. I mean, for me, for so long in my life, I sort of led with external validation, led with sort of a victim mindset. What are other people going to think rather than like, what am I going to think about myself? So for me, leading with courage is having the courage to be yourself and not having to try and, be somebody to impress somebody, but, living by your own values. So I don't know if you've had an answer like that before, but I think leading with courage is just, having the, courage to be yourself and lead with authenticity.
Yes, absolutely agree. Can I ask you about values? How did you land on your values? Was it something you sat down and worked through? Was it something that over time it's become clearer? What's the path for you?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey for me. I mean, I used to be a professional athlete and lived a pretty extraordinary life, as a professional surfer, traveling the world, having this life that most people would look at and somewhat envy or just think like, wow, you've got the perfect life, which I mean, I absolutely did, but I probably didn't have the perfect mindset for a lot of my junior career up until probably like my early to mid 20s. Once again, I was leading with this external validation, what other people thought of me. And I didn't recognize at the time how unhealthy that was because at times, we don't reach these big goals that we set out to reach. And if I wasn't reaching my goals, I felt less, insignificant, sort of awkward, embarrassed, ashamed when I wasn't reaching these big goals. And then my psychologist kind of challenged me and he said, like, pro surfing's what you do, mate, but it's not who you are. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, what are your values? And I was like, oh, I guess like, kindness, respect, honesty, all these ones that I'd been told about a lot as a kid. But then he said, like, but how well do you actually live to those values? And that was the first time that I'd actually stopped and really reflected on sort of how my actions align with my values.
Yeah.
I went on a bit of a sort of exploration throughout my 20s to like try and find what my values were. And, there's some great online quizzes and things like this that can give you a bit of evidence what your values are. But for me, it was kind of a bit of a journey of exploring, reading other people's stories, whether it be through books or listening to podcasts or watching documentaries and looking at sort of people that I'm inspired by, not just by their achievements, but more so by the people they are. And some people that come to mind are like Mick Fanning, just such an incredible human, the way that he holds himself more so outside of surfing, just a great guy. And another one that I refer to quite often is Andre Agassi. And if anyone's read his book or knows anything about his story, like he was a bad boy in tennis and, was very unhappy, unhealthy through his early 20s, heavily into drugs and alcohol. But then in his late 20s, he, started a school for disadvantaged kids, started to donate a lot of his time and money to this school, and he began to be fulfilled again and lived a great life. And what I took from that was he found his values, kindness, generosity, giving back, and
Yeah.
living to those values made him, live a far better and more fulfilled life. So I was just sort of like throughout my 20s looking for evidence in people who I look up to who, outside of their career are just good humans. And that's been my sort of journey to understanding what values work for me and what values, if I live by them, I can maintain, good balance in my own well-being.
Oh, so good. And there's so much of that that I love. Like, I think just in the sporting arena, like, as you say, the external validation that I think that so many people we aim for this in our lives or strive for this in our lives. And the language you're using there just reminds me so much about listening to Ben Crow when he speaks, about who are you versus what do you do versus a human being versus a human doing. And yeah, so how long can you tell me with when you were on that journey, were you still surfing at that time?
Yeah, absolutely. That was like kind of really in the crux of my surf career at like an important time to find those values. So had a pretty successful junior career, and I always sort of rode this roller coaster. Like if I won comps, I felt great, and if I was
Yeah.
losing, I felt average. And then, yeah, at about 21, I got that lesson, and started to understand my values a bit more. And then, funnily enough, I went to the first ever surfing Olympics training camp at about I think I was about 23 when this happened, and I just lost my major sponsor, so I was kind of in this place where external validation was at an extreme low. Like I'd been lost my major sponsor. I was finding it really hard to support my surf career, sort of on the verge of giving up. And Ben Crow was actually one of the speakers at the Olympics camp.
Oh,
And
wow.
he sort of reiterated that lesson of like, pro surfing's what you do, but it's not who you are, guys. And that sent me on to, really leaning into this values work and understanding who I was. And, the back part of my surf career, sort of, I'd say from 23 till 28, I traveled the world without a sponsor. So I had no money coming in from any support from any brands or businesses. I was doing it all off my own back of, being a tradie assistant to working at a surf school to doing every little job I could to save enough money to go to my surf comps. And, for the first part of my journey, I had a very big victim mindset. I'd look at the world and be like, these guys are ranked way lower than me, but I'm not getting paid anything and they're getting paid good. And it was always this victim, like what I don't have mindset. And that was where these values started to really shine through because I kind of realized like I can make a choice. Like I'm the only one living in my own head. I can look at the world through the lens of a victim, or I can look at the world through the lens of gratitude and look at the world through a lens of mindfulness and being present. And my dad always told me as a kid, like appreciation, not expectation, Cooper. And I remember sitting on the beach in South Africa, right about 6 months or 12 months into this journey of working full time to go and pay for my surf comps, sort of self-soothing with drugs and alcohol to get through that period of my life. And then I was sitting on the beach this day, and I remember like looking out at the waves and about to paddle out for this big competition with this like terrible mindset. Like, I can't believe that guy's getting paid. Look, I'm in this third round of the comp, and look at all these guys who have been knocked out already. That I'm doing better than. And then I was just like, wait, like, what is this? Is so stupid, this mindset. Like, there's guys at home that I work with on the job site right now digging holes while I'm sitting in South Africa going surfing. And I
Yeah.
get that that's coming from an absolute place of privilege with the life that I've lived. But I also understand that all of us can make that choice every single day. Do we look through the lens of what don't I have or what do I have? It doesn't matter who you are, where you're at in life. We all have challenges. Some are far greater than others, and I absolutely respect that. But we all have a few little things that we can, shine the light on that are going well. Whether you're taking a breath today, it's more than a lot of people who are going to pass away today. Whether you've got eyesight or you've got use of all your body, so many people don't. And very often we're really comparing across and up in life, which is important for, sort of reaching and understanding. Like it's good to have, goals. But not enough of us are sort of comparing across and down the people who are a bit less fortunate than us. And comparison isn't super important in life, but I think it is important just to like stop and reflect like where you're at and where how far you've come as well. So yeah, through the surfing career, values really helped me in the back part of my career, to be honest, to enjoy my life. Like
Yeah.
I lived when I was getting paid with that victim mindset that I should be getting paid more. And then when I wasn't getting paid to surf, that's when I began to actually be like, you know what? Life's pretty good. I'm traveling the world, I'm surfing, I'm with my friends. Sure, I'm, doing it off the bat of working really hard and whatnot at home, but it's a lot more than a lot of people.
Yeah, and that almost that sense when you get out of that victim mentality, that sense of satisfaction that you're doing it yourself too, right? That it's that drive internally. And I love that perspective when you're saying across or up. And often I think across or down, like just gives us, it's not about better than, but just perspective, isn't it? Just gives us perspective of what else could be. I've heard a few people say, and I do really agree, is that we don't want that comparison with what's the phrase? It's just, of course, it's just escaped me
Alright,
at this moment.
right?
Yeah. I love that. I live by that phrase, right? The comparison is a thief of joy, but also the comparison, like suffering, comparison of suffering, where sometimes this is kind of counterintuitive to this conversation. But also when we see things for what they are, where we go, oh, well, I should be. And this is when we talk about gratitude. I think this is an important piece is like, when people say, I should be grateful for this because people have got it worse than me, but it's almost removing the shoulds because I think that's the expectation, isn't it? Rather than appreciating if you are in a tough place, accepting the yes and like I am in a tough place and this is what I can see that I'm grateful for, I can appreciate. What are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree, and that's why I really tried to precursor with like I understand that I come from like an absolute place of privilege, being like, a young white male who's, grown up as a professional athlete with a lot of opportunity. Like, don't get me wrong, I didn't come from any sort of wealth, but I definitely had family and parents who, afforded me all the opportunities I wanted and worked very hard for what I achieved. But yeah, I think so often it is hard to sort of talk about gratitude from the position I'm in, but like you said, it's not about saying, "Oh, I don't have bad things going on." It's about, yes, I've got some really challenging things going on, absolutely. But I can also choose each day to stop for a few minutes and recognize that there is a few good things. And if we, understand the neuroscience of it, and there's so much great data and now studies that show, like, just by shining that light on the few positive things that are going on, as well as there's a lot of negative, and sometimes it's so bloody hard to do it. And sometimes you're in such a hard spot that you can't even see that. And I absolutely understand that. But it's just about trying to get back on that horse. Okay, how can I practice a little bit of gratitude to get that release of the neurochemicals that make me feel okay? So it's yeah, I completely empathize with people who are in that really challenging moment, who are struggling with a mental illness, who can't see that light. But yeah, just trying your best each day to shine, a little bit of light on the positive things, I believe is really important.
Yeah, likewise. So talk us through you toward the end of the career, because I'd love to kind of learn about what the shift to where you are now and surfing. Was it a choice to finish surfing? Was there an event that finished the surfing career? I mean, I'm sure you're still surfing, but not, in those comps as regularly. What was the story there?
I've got wet hair right now. I just got
Yeah,
out
I'm
of
sure you never stop surfing, but just to
yeah.
what level?
I mean, I had a pretty solid awareness throughout my whole surf career. Like, I never quite made it to the top 32 in the world, which is sort of the goal in surfing, the world tour, which is I mean, pretty elite when you really look at it. When you zoom out, like, there's millions and millions of surfers in the world, far more surfers in the world than there are rugby league players. And to make the top 32 in the world, that's like trying to make just the Australian team. Like, you have to be the elite of the elite on the whole planet to get to the top
Yeah.
32. I was kind of ranked between 50 and 100 for most of my surf career.
Yeah, wow.
I kind of always dreamed of getting there and felt like I could get there, but it just didn't fall my way because I mean, but I always had this awareness that, surfing's not going to be forever. Not many athletes get past the age of 30 and are still competing at a high level. So I always had this awareness that I need to find something else. So off the back of that, I was always also like quite entrepreneurial, coming up with ideas. What can I do to not sort of be in that rat race of being on a, on a wage or on a yearly salary? How can I create my own sort of opportunity? So with that mindset, I, throughout my surf career, was always looking for things and trying to work out what I could do. But I also, towards sort of the mid to end of my career, really going off this values piece, was started to recognize that, yeah, we kind of climb this mountain of sort of self-achievement, trying to, reach big goals, become top athletes, climb the corporate ladder. But then you get very near the top of it, like I did, top 100 in the world in something, and you look over and there's this other mountain that is like, oh, that's a mountain of service to other people, of giving back, of sharing what you've learned. And that's what really fulfills you. And, now doing the work I do, I really understand that, kindness and mindfulness and all these different skills that I teach now really bring fulfillment, and then giving back and generosity, absolutely, as well. So off the guise of all of that, I was always like, what can I do? And I'd run some surf camps to sort of make some money on the side before, and I'd run these camps, and a few of the kids, when I was doing the camps, I taught them about mindfulness because I feel like it's a great skill as an athlete to learn how to be present, to focus on what's happening right now, not have your past and future thinking. And then after the camp, a lot of the parents said, like, the kids really love the mindfulness and love learning it from you. A 25-year-old at the time, but guy teaching them this stuff, was quite nice for them. And then back in 2018, my youngest of three sisters was in her last year of high school. And she came home from school one day, and I always tell this story that she lost two friends to suicide. But speaking to her about it recently, she's like, no, 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 the first one died actually in a car crash. And then one of the other boys in the car took his own life 2 weeks later. And in that moment, I just kind of really started to think about mental illness and recognize like the big issue we have after I did some research when it comes to young people and mental health issues and suicide. And, I'd lost an uncle to suicide. I'd watched my dad struggle. And as I mentioned, like I'd had moments of, real challenges when it came to my identity and not living by values and victim mindset and external validation. So I'd had my challenges, but I'd also had a bit of fear of reaching out, like most of us do. There's so much great studies that show people find it really hard to reach out. But I feel like I was very lucky that I had the capacity to research stuff and, go on that exploration through my 20s and learn some really valuable stuff that I never learned at school.
Mm.
So when my sister lost that second friend, or the second friend took his own life, I was like, maybe I can go and talk to like some of the kids at my old high school and, just share my story, these little lessons I've learnt, and it might help them. So I went and spoke to a school teacher of mine who was a mate and said, can I come and, share my story with the kids at our old school? And maybe it'll help one of them. Like that's always my goal. If I can help one person when I walk into a room of 50, 100, 200, then I've done my job. Like that's kind of all you can ever ask for. And my data now shows I help, a large portion of the room. So that's where the Good Human Factory started was, going and doing one workshop at a high school that I used to go to, and then COVID hit and I couldn't do workshops for a year or two, and I sort of, did more research and did a few short courses around the science of well-being and started the Good Human Factory podcast and started interviewing experts in well-being and just fascinating people who have achieved amazing feats in their life, and began to share those lessons through workshops with high schools, which then turned into corporates. And yeah, now that's what I do full time. I retired from surfing I retired from surfing in 2022, so still with the Good Human Factory, working full time as a tradie to fund the surfing career, surfing full time, and then the Good Human Factory is a very part-time thing. And now it's just evolved into, my full-time gig, and it keeps me beyond busy. So it's a very weird like journey of where it started, why I got into what I'm doing. And yeah, now I'm just lucky enough to try my best to learn really important information, bring it down to really digestible and easy to action things, and then pass it on.
Oh, that's amazing. And, I was lucky enough to sit in one of your sessions the other day at the Place Real Estate's conference. And so I was in the room, and I agree with you about the digestible, really relatable, very real. What I loved about your session, and it helped me too. So when you go, well, what's the one person, it would have helped lots of people in the room, but I thank you for that. What I loved so much, and in particular, I really loved not overdoing the tech speak about it all. Like you can see that you've done your research, that you know what you're talking about, and it's a legit knowledge. But sometimes I think people can get too scientific and too, the science and neuroscience is critical, but the way that we communicate that with people we don't overdo it, because it's not about a science lesson. It's around how do people put this into their day. And one thing that really struck me, and I've written it down to ask you about, and I've I hope you don't mind, but I've started saying the same thing, is let's stop talking about mental health awareness and let's start talking about mental health action. Because so often you're so right. And I think in October was Mental Health Awareness Month, and it's like, no, let's bring that to the action. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, your drive around the awareness versus action?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at the data and the stats, like, anyone listening right now can definitely agree. Like, we can all agree that mental health awareness is at an all-time high, which is so important that we're talking about it more, that we're, doing campaigns, there's charities popping up everywhere, people doing so much great work in the space. but the numbers are still getting worse. So I think it's really important that we move from, just mental health awareness to mental health action. And I also think it's important that we sort of decipher between mental health and mental illness.
Hmm.
Because so often when we hear the word mental health and mental health awareness, we're really bringing a lot of awareness to mental illnesses. We're bringing awareness to depression, anxiety. If people are struggling, seeking help, calling Lifeline, going to your EAP at work, like it's so important that we reach out for help when we get to that point of struggle. But if 20% of us will be diagnosed with a mental illness, generally what I find from my workshops is, you mentioned the word mental health and 80% of the room kind of not roll their eyes, but go like, oh, okay, another one of those talks. This isn't really for me. I'm not really struggling with mental illness, but I really try and make it, really simple and say, like, just because you don't have mental illness doesn't mean you shouldn't work on your mental health. Mental health is about maintenance. Mental health isn't a destination, it's a journey. And I say to people, like, imagine you've got a treadmill with perfect mental health up the end of the treadmill, like the carrot dangling, and mental illness is when you fall off the back of the treadmill. You can never get to or you might sprint to the top of the treadmill, but guess what? Life's going to slowly start to bring you back towards mental illness. It's not about having a really good mental health care plan for a month and then going, sweet, I'm good. I'll wait till I get back to the back and then run to the top again. Not at all. It's about what are the things that I'm doing every single day to take a step or two against that metaphorical treadmill. And that's what I really think mental health action is. What are the daily things that we're doing to step against that treadmill? Mental health awareness, I think, is showing that, hey, once you fall off the treadmill, here's all the incredible things that you can do, that you can reach out to, the resources that we have. But I really think it's important that we start to educate people on the different things that you can do, but more importantly, inspire them to take those actions so that we see less people ending up off that back of the treadmill.
Yes, I love the treadmill analogy. And I think, when you look at the mental health continuum, being mentally well and then mentally ill, that I love that, and reminding us that 80%, that's 80% of us. How do we get into that green? Or if you start heading that yellow orange, like what are the skills, the tools? One thing I've noticed following your socials, which I absolutely love, and I don't know if it's an always on thing or if it's just been more with October in particular, and then it's carried on. But I see your posts around, 3 things you're grateful for each day and meditating every day. Do you just post that every day? Is it just maybe I've only just started noticing
Three
your
and a half years every
profile
single day.
every single day? So not just the last few months. On your socials, you sharing that?
Yeah, so I'll explain what it is and why I did it.
Please.
So it's called the 1% Good Club. So basically, over 3 years ago now, 1,341 days ago, I was lying down doing a 10-minute meditation and just thinking in my head, like, fuck, mental health is, such a challenge in the world. Like, surely we can all agree that we can give 1% of our day to our mental health. Like, and sitting in the meditation, as we all do, I couldn't stop my mind thinking. And I literally stopped that meditation 5 minutes in and went, oh my God, I've got to work out the maths of what 1% of a 24-hour day is. So 1,440 minutes in a day, 1% of that is 14.4 minutes. 14.4 minutes is 14 minutes and 24 seconds. So I was like, what could we do for 1% of our day or 14 minutes? So less than 1% of your day that's good for your mental health and that are free, that don't cost anything. There's no barrier to entry
Yeah.
other than time. And 1% of your time is something we should all agree we can find the time to do. So that's a starting point where this started from. And then I was also like, you're far more likely to maintain a healthy habit if you have a community around you doing it with you. So I was like, why don't I start an Instagram community where every single morning I'll send a link to a 10-minute meditation on Instagram in like a group chat. And every single night I'll put 3 things I'm grateful for on my Instagram story. I'll send that then to the group chat and everyone can write in the group chat 3 things that they're grateful for. So that started, yeah, over 3 years ago now, and it grew from like 20 people on the first day to there's over 1,500 members now from just strangers all around the world. It's completely free. It always will be. All you have to do is send at the Good Human Factory a direct message on Instagram saying, I want to join the club. And you get added into a group chat. You get the link sent to you every morning. You can click to do the meditation. Every night you see all your community write 3 things they're grateful for. And it just sparks this, positive sort of place. And in the last, 3 years, there's been over 500,000 gratitude sent in from strangers all around the world. And to be honest, it's probably the thing that I'm most proud of with the work that I do because it costs nothing. It's a free resource for anyone to be a part of. I haven't missed a day in over 3 years, which I'm, super proud of. And just the anecdotal evidence I've seen from thousands of people who have, tried to take that step and stayed consistent with it is that it's having a massive positive influence on their life. Um, So yeah, that's just something that that I offer to my community, to anyone who listens to me on a podcast, to go and join for free. If you love it, hang around. If you don't, you can leave. There's no judgment at all. Like, people come and go every day. But it's just a way for me to give back and for me to stay consistent for those things that are good for our mental health.
I absolutely love that. I've got it now. Now it all pieces up for me. I'm going to be joining, and I think the other beautiful part, like when you're reading, everyone's like obviously expressing your own gratitude is rewiring our own pathways, and is having our, like you said, shining the light on something from that day, big or small. But then reading other people, it's almost like the act of kindness, and then that just continues on, doesn't it? So I think it keeps those feel goods, or if you're not having a great day, sometimes seeing someone else's, the smallest thing someone can be grateful for, that you go, yeah, that's right, I've had something like that today too. And yeah, it's incredible.
And it's so beautiful because these communities of people see each other's gratitude every day. Some of the people have been in there for 3 years. So you start to like build a relationship with this stranger based on what they're grateful for each day. And, some days people will be like, today was a shitty day. Sorry if I can't swear.
No,
Uh,
you can swear.
Sorry, I mean, today was, an average day. My dog passed away. And then you'll have like all of these strangers who know each other through just their gratitudes getting around each other, like, oh, I'm so sorry for your loss. If you need someone to talk to, direct message me privately. And you have all these people supporting each other just because of they're part of this 1% good community.
That is absolutely brilliant. And yeah, that community, that sense of human connection, the world needs a lot more of this, I feel, right now, more than ever. I mean, I think it always does, but now more than ever, there's so many reasons that we're divided and we're not actually connected. But in moments like that, you realize there's no political divide, there's no gender divide, there's none of this. It's just, how do I turn up, as a good human in this world and see what is great around us? So, or even just good around us.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just shining that light on the couple positive things each day.
Yeah, amazing. From a workplace perspective, and I'm really curious when you said, sometimes people go, oh, mental health, and that almost internal eye roll, or oh yeah, these are my words now, but or that's the hot topic right now, or that's the, on trend thing. What are the lessons? And because I also believe, about pushing through, and the importance for leaders, or if they're talking about bringing people like you in to speak, even just running their own gratitude sessions in their teams, whatever it is, it all matters. What are your thoughts around, like, how do we break that barrier of the resistance, I suppose, or the fears maybe that people have around this topic, or any experience you've had from a corporate perspective?
I mean, for me, it's really trying to open my workshops with just the language of going like, hey, just because you don't relate to mental illness, this isn't about that. This is about mental health, and trying to make people recognize that, we have physical health, that if we don't take care of it, we're going to end up, out of shape, unhealthy. Just like our mental health, if we're not taking actions for it, we're not going to see, things change with it. So I think for me, it's just really trying to like share that this like isn't a mental illness talk. And there's so many incredible people who are out there doing talks around mental illness, around, having conversations that are important, having real conversations, having the ability to see when people are struggling and seeking help. Like, that's really important for businesses, I think, as well, to have in. But I think it's important to recognize that, hey, what are we doing to sort of bring people from a 5 to a 7 out of 10, from a 7 to a 9 out of 10? Very often mental health is, trying to support that person sitting at a 1 or a 2 out of 10 and bring them out of the dumps, which so important. But I really try and encourage people to realize that, hey, just because people aren't struggling doesn't mean they can't, learn some skills so that when they get to a point of struggle, they're far more equipped. So yeah, it is obviously sometimes tough in a corporate space, and you see some businesses doing it really well, and really taking into their culture this idea of well-being and holistic well-being and how important it is. There's so much great research that shows like how much mental illness and poor mental health is costing the corporate sector, but we're not really investing, and the investment on it, a lot of the data shows that like the investing in holistic well-being or just well-being education for your staff actually has great like return on investment when it comes to absentees and productivity. So I think, recognizing that and finding the right people who connect with your staff and the culture at your staff to help just like, it's not about steering the ship like 180 degrees different. Like we're trying to like move the ship like 1 or 2 degrees different. And
Mm.
1 or 2 degrees over 6 months, 12 months, 5 years is a far different place. And hopefully with, those tweaks being a little bit healthier and happier place, you're going to see a workplace that's going to be a little bit different over time. So it's about just trying to do those incremental shifts, which over times have exponential impact.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important reminder for leaders going, it can feel really big. I really want to fix this or impact this or really make a difference in my workplace. And it can feel so overwhelming at times. So I think that reminder of that 1 degree or 1% is critical because we don't need to fix anything in inverted commas. We just got to bring action and awareness, education and action again to really begin that process. And it is a journey for everyone. With your 14 minutes and your 3 gratitudes and your meditation, can I ask, often a common conversation people have is meditation's not for me, or I find it really hard. What's your take or advice there?
I mean, meditation is tough for anyone, right? I mean, you ask anyone, like, what have you tried to meditate? And you'll probably get most people be like, yeah, I tried it once and my mind just didn't slow down. So it was quite intimidating. So I stopped. And that's very regular, the answer that I'll get when I ask people that. And like for humans, it's kind of argued. We have between like 6 and 60,000 thoughts a day. There's kind of different reports on that from different neuroscientists. But let's take it at the low level of 6,000 thoughts a day. On average, we usually have around 75% of the thoughts are negative, and 95% of them are usually the same thoughts we had yesterday. They're repetitive. So if we have 6,000 thoughts a day, 4,500 are negative, you multiply that by over a year, that's over like 1.6 million negative thoughts a year. Like, don't you
Shit.
think it would be, yeah, don't you think it'd be nice if we could wind that 75% down to like 50 or 40%? Like, sure, we're always going to have negative thoughts. They keep us alive. Biologically, we're wired to look for the negative for survival, but I don't think we need 75% of a negative. The most important relationship you'll ever have is the one with yourself and the one with the thoughts up in your head. And what I've found through, I mean, interviewing a lot of people, doing a lot of research in this space is, and myself doing this, is that the best way and pretty challenging way to improve that relationship with yourself is to sit with those thoughts from time to time. And, I've done plenty of meditation courses and my meditation coach is like 15 years into meditating daily. And he said, like, for me, it takes like 8 to 10 minutes to kind of get to a point of a bit quiet up there. So don't just sit down and think you're bad at meditating because you can't slow your thoughts down. Like master meditators take a long time to slow their thoughts down. It's not about slowing your thoughts down. It's about witnessing your thoughts. It's about building what we call metacognition, being aware of your thoughts and sometimes questioning them, going, wow, that thought is so untrue that I'm telling myself. It's so unhelpful. Like, why am I telling myself that? And we can start to sort of distance ourselves from those thoughts by sitting with them from time to time, which, as we all know, is very intimidating. And that's why there's so many great levels, whether it's, doing a guided meditation. So you don't get stuck in the thinking, you can kind of be guided by someone. Or if, you want to go a little bit deeper, you can find like Vedic meditation and have a mantra that if you do drift off, you bring it back to the mantra. Drift off, bring it back to the mantra. There's so many free resources when it comes to meditation and like there's no good or bad meditators. There's just someone who meditates and somebody who doesn't. And like, I fall off the bandwagon for a few days at a time here or there and just it's not about being perfect. It's about being consistent. How do I start to improve that relationship? And think of it like any other relationship. Things take time to improve. Things take time to build on. And sitting with those thoughts is one of the best ways I've found and through a lot of research I've found is best way to improve that relationship with yourself.
Yeah, yeah, that's great advice. Thank you. Outside of meditation and gratitude, what are some of your own, I guess it doesn't have to be extra to that, but what are some other tools you use? And I ask, my husband speaks about this. He meditates every single day and we practice gratitude as a family every day. And he'll often say when he's having a good day or a medium kind of day, they're enough. Those tools are enough for him and exercise. But then when he's having a rough time or there's times of uncertainty or just difficult, he's like, well, I need the extra tools. When you just got to dig a bit deeper. What are some of those for you when you're under stress? You might be traveling a lot. You've got a lot on. What are some extra tools that you dig into?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important to have extra tools for, the days that we don't feel like meditating, the days we don't feel like doing other stuff. And, I'm actually writing a book about this at the moment it's going to be called The 1% Good Club, which will be my story about values, but then 14 different, or I think it'll be 10. I'm going to combine a few different healthy habits that I've learned from experts on my podcast that are backed in science that, make us feel good. So these are
Amazing.
the kind of ones that I try and do each day. I reckon I probably do half of them each day. But then just try and be consistent. Try and over a week have a pretty good average of at least half. So the different ones are breath work. There's so much great science out there now that shows like the impact of breath work for regulating your emotions, being able to, release a lot. So I try and do breath work most days. Meditation's another one. Taking my supplements, taking care of my health, whether it's, getting a blood test and understanding what you're deficient in, understanding yourself better. So, knowledge is power when it comes to our health. So for me, it's like taking my right supplements. I've got a few different like brain capsules, vitamin B12, my greens. Getting in nature. I think getting in nature is so important. So many of us, don't put our bare skin on the earth, whether it's the grass, the sand, the dirt, ever. Like, you live in a big city and you don't take your shoes off ever. Like, I think it's so important to do grounding. I mean, you can go look up grounding and the effects on it yourself. But for me, grounding, getting in nature is so important just to reconnect. Stretching, spending a bit of time before bed, whether it's lying on a massage ball or lying on a foam roller or just lying and just sort of like rolling your body around in movements that just feel nice to get a little bit of release. There's a huge one for me. Drinking enough water, another thing, trying to, I mean, I'm a sucker for this, but I'm trying my best to have a drink bottle with me at,
Yep.
most moments and, drinking good water too, doing a bit of research into the importance of having, the right filtered water. What else is on my list? Home cooking and like, eating healthy foods, trying your best to eat whole foods. And, for me, I love going to the farmers market and like connecting with the farmers and having that interaction once a week where, you speak to your butcher. If you eat meat, you go speak to, your local farmers. If you do live in a major city or somewhere where you can go participate in the community of, getting from the farmer. It's come from their farm to the table to you, to your body, rather than it's gone from a farm through all these processes, packaged, sent to a thing, put on the shelf for a few weeks, put out in the market. You walk through the shopping center with your headphones in, you have no interaction with anyone, you scan and pay, and you leave. Like, I'm big on sort of energy and spirituality, and I do some incredible podcasts with different people in all these different fields, and have just learnt like there is, an energetic component to going to the markets, to getting whole foods that haven't been packaged that, go from there into your body. So for me, trying my best to, eat whole foods and get from the farmers markets and organic and fresh is really important to me. What else do I have on that list? Reading, making sure I, try and read a few pages of a book each day. I think it's really important that we try and grow through life, not just go through life. I feel like a lot of us, obviously, we have so much going on in our life. We're so busy. We're so, overworked and stressed that we feel like, oh, we don't have time for this stuff. But I think it's important that we're always trying to learn new things, to expand, to have our, perspective and our opinions challenged and be open to, going, oh, that's a great new bit of information. I'll add that into my life. And then like another one for me is just self-care, whether it be making sure my sleep hygiene's good, tracking my sleep with wearables and making sure I'm like staying on top of my sleep, staying on top of, just personal hygiene, making sure, my house is clean, making sure I'm in an environment where I feel good. So there's like a whole range of things that I don't do every day, but I just try and pick from all of them. And yeah, I actually have like an accountability whiteboard at home where I have like 14 different healthy habits and across 7 days. 14 times by 7 is 98. So I feel like I get like a score out of 100 each week, how I do with those habits. And, I sit at on average between like 50 and 70 a week. Never am I really more than 70 or 80. I live a busy life. It's hard to maintain. So like I'm
Yeah.
far from perfect, but I have all of these different tools that, I pull out when I feel like I need them and just try and stay consistent. And I'm always trying to learn new ones too. So hopefully that gives you a really long-winded
Yes.
answer,
Well, one, I'm ready for the pre-order for your book. So let me know when that's happening. But that's going to be incredible. What a great gift that is. And two, that whiteboard has just given me something because we have an incredible like goals vision board that we have on our fridge. And part of it is what do we want to do, but how do we need to be as well? So but I'm a huge huge advocate for variety. Like I'm not really the one who has a really, really strict, always the same routine. And when you're saying about that grid, I'm like, that is speaking to me, where you go, okay, well, what in your week, making sure that you've got that dose. And yeah, that is going on the canning fridge for 2025. That is for sure.
And one more that was on there was exercise that I didn't add. And what else? And actually another good one,
Yeah.
communication. I think that's really important that we have like connection and communication each day in our life. You know, if you are in a hard spot, trying to make sure you make a phone call to a friend, a family member, have a chat. For me, it's more so about my partner and I have been doing distance for the last 4 months. So just trying to actually spend a little bit of time connecting each day. And when I say connection, it's not just like, oh, this is what I did today. It's like, oh, this is how I'm feeling today. This is what I'm, going through. Just letting people in on it and not carrying that weight. So, yeah, there's like, yeah, as I said, a big smorgasbord of different things. And I'm going to be writing a book about the science behind all of those, my experience with all of those, but then also some little techniques and strategies how to implement them into your day.
Oh, that sounds incredible. Absolutely incredible. I am thinking about an experience in 2017. We just had our daughter at the end of 2016, and she was born 3 months early, so she was in hospital for quite a long time. And when she came out, the pressure that my husband and I think our relationship was under then, on reflection, was in a really not great place at all. And one thing we did, when you think about the connection and the gratitude and communication, that I swear it saved our marriage. I really believe this, and it sounds so simple, but for people, not, they don't need to be in that position, but just in a place where when maybe, yeah, ships in the night, or it's very tick box kind of communication in life, is getting busy and we're not putting the energy in. But we would send a text message to each other every day, and there was the prayer hands of what am I grateful for, and the love heart of what I love about you, and it had to be different every day. And every day we would send it. So to receive that was so meaningful, but also to think about it. And honestly, there were some days there that I'm like, nothing, there's nothing. But we weren't in the best place. But of course, you must find that thing, right? And that was just incredibly powerful. And anytime where Andy and I these days have find that we're just so, there's a lot happening. I don't like to use the word busy, but there's a lot on the calendar and there's a lot happening. And maybe we're running at two different paces in two different directions at times. That's something we'll go, hang on, we've just got to check in with our love and grateful text to one another again. And this just so simple, but it's the reminder for us all not to overlook simplicity, that it's not impactful, because it has so much power.
Well, it's not overlooking the action. Like after today's chat, we all have the awareness that, yeah, gratitude is a really powerful thing. We have the awareness that mindfulness and meditation is a powerful thing. But are we actually doing it? Are we actually taking the action? You don't get the benefits from it unless you take the action. It's all well and good to know the science of it, but you need to take the action to get the benefits. And not enough of us, I don't think, are taking those actions to actually get the benefits of these things. And I think that's, yeah, moving from awareness to action.
Yeah, absolutely. And to the point that anyone listening right now, press pause, send a text to someone you're grateful for. Do the action now, right? When we're in the moment. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Cooper, do you have, I'd love to just ask, to kind of round out our conversation today, just if you've got one, if you could have one wish granted in the corporate world around mental health and action, what would it be? What a piece of advice, or what thing would you love to see?
Ooh. Hmm. I mean, I want to say everyone books my workshop, but
Fair.
one bit of it's just such a complex world out there. There's so many different industries. I just think if people led with empathy rather than judgment, would be in a far different place. When, you see somebody doing something that you don't agree with, or you see somebody make a mistake, or you see somebody, you know, do something that, yeah, isn't aligned with your values or with your opinions, instead of leading with judgment, try and lead with empathy. I wonder why they're doing that. I wonder what they have gone through for them to act this way. I wonder, what they're struggling with, or, I wonder, if we lived every day in that person's shoes, we would have acted the exact same way. So just trying to have empathy that, people are always trying their best, and yeah, trying to lead with empathy rather than judgment, I think is super important.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And makes me think about a favorite quote of mine that I feel like you might have on some merch now. Well, I will often say, get curious before you get furious. But I think, have you got the hat on? Get curious, not furious. I love it, because I'm saying before you get furious. So maybe we avoid the furious altogether. Get curious, not furious. So that empathy and just curious for what's going on for this person. Yeah, what a powerful perspective.
Absolutely. It's something that I'm working on. All the stuff I talk about and teach is like just all the stuff that I'm working on. So it's I'm far from perfect, and I'm just on this journey with everyone part of my community and everyone part of the work that I do. So hopefully we can go on the journey together. That's as I said, 1 or 2 degrees different can send us in a far different place in the future.
That's amazing. Well, we'll share the links so people can join your club and your social media handles, and also if they want to go and get some of that merch, we'll link everything in. And I really want to thank you so much, not just for your time today, but just your perspective. And I just love your energy, your genuine, authentic way of talking about such important topics. And I love it. I think there's for every business, for every person, there's different voices that are going to speak to them. And I just think you're so relatable. You're so real. Watching you on a stage, listening to you here, it's the real deal. And I'm really grateful for your time. This will be our last episode actually for the year. And I just think what a perfect way to round this out and to send people off into the silly season. And just remember, get curious, not furious, stay empathetic, be grateful. Cooper, I'm so grateful for your time.
No, thank you so much. And I'll give everyone one last one. If this is coming out right before Christmas.
Yeah, it will be.
Best thing you can do for someone as a Christmas present, or as well as a Christmas present. I know times are tough right now. If you feel, I can't afford to get that amazing thing, spend 5 minutes, write them a little card about how much you're grateful for them and the things that you're grateful for about them. That'll mean more to them than going to, I don't have the time to go to the shop and buy the present. Spend 5 minutes and write them a card. That'll mean more to them than buying them a, $50 present that they don't really need. Write them a heartfelt card that you're grateful for them. It'll make you feel great and it'll make them feel great. There's the perfect present for Christmas.
Yeah, what a win. That is awesome. That's a beautiful way to finish. Thank you so, so much. And Merry Christmas to you and your family, or whatever you celebrate.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Lead with Courage podcast. We illuminate leadership, and it's our mission to inspire and grow the leaders of today to create a better tomorrow. We hope and trust that this episode has given you some insights and joy to empower you to live your biggest, best life. If you did enjoy the episode, we'd be so grateful for you to rate and share wherever you listen to this podcast. And until next time, go and lead with courage. Luminate Leadership is not a licensed mental health service or a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. Any conversation in this podcast is general in nature, and if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114.